lot of people in the world, but some of them get treated badly just because they're different. But even though they had these setbacks, these kids with disabilities made a difference for all people who have had a disability in their life. Louis Braille, Helen Keller, and Jennifer Keelan were all children who were or who became disabled. Jennifer suffered from a disease called cerebral palsy. Louis was only 3 years old when he became blind, and Helen became blind and deaf at an early age too. Jennifer Keelan had the disease called cerebral palsy, which caused her to be in a wheelchair. Even though she had this setback, she still was able to make friends. But as a disabled child, she didn't have as much rights as a non-disabled child might have. Then one day, when she was very young, her friend Kenny Perkins died. She was only 8 years old when this tragedy happened to her friend. What made this even sadder was that Kenny was a disabled child too. A couple months after this sad tragedy, Jennifer's mom said there were a lot of disabled people getting out of their wheelchairs and climbing the Capitol stairs to raise awareness about how disabled people should have rights too. So her mom brought her to watch it happen. When Jen got there, she saw all of the people climbing and she was so inspired that she, at 8 years old, wanted to climb the Capitol stairs too. Her parents kept telling her that it was a bad idea, but she decided that she wanted to climb those stairs. So, Jen got out of her wheelchair and started crawling up the stairs with the other 60 disabled Americans. As reporters surrounded her, she continued to climb and was famously recorded saying these words. She said that she wanted to be treated like a human being. As she continued to climb the stairs, she said that she was motivated by Kenny. When Jen reached the top, she looked a politician in the eye. After the climb, the government knew they had to make a change. Overall, Jennifer Keelan has made a difference in our world today. She is an inspiration because she was only 8 years old when she decided to bravely climb the Capitol stairs, to not only help herself, but to help and inspire all kids with disabilities. Jen has made a huge impact on our world today, and how we treat people too. But she's not the only child with a disability who broke barriers and changed the world today. Louis Braille was born on January 4th, 1809. But he was only 3 years old when he was playing in his father's tool shed and had a sharp object fall and land in his eye. Even though he was put under the best care, his eye got infected and eventually spread to his other eye, leaving him completely and permanently blind. This affected Louis's life immensely. It meant that he would have a hard time learning because he wouldn't be able to see. But Louis persevered and worked extra hard to get a good education. He soon realized, though, that there was one major setback. There was no efficient way for him and all other blind people to read. The only way for him to read was using Charles Bavier's night writing code. This was not an efficient way to read because it only had one letter per page, so it took a super long time to read a word, let alone a whole book. So, when Louis was only 10 years old, he decided to start creating an efficient way for the blind to read a book. While Louis was working hard on getting a good education, he was also working on a writing system for blind people in his spare time. Soon, his hard work paid off and he got a scholarship to go to the National Institute for Blind Youth in Paris. He still continued to work on the writing system even when he went to the institute. He kept working on this project until, finally, Louis Braille finished this new and efficient way of reading and writing for the blind. And after a while, he taught his friends how to use it too. Once it was completely finished and all of his friends were using it, Louis decided to name his new writing system after himself. He named it Braille. Soon, Braille was recognized by the French government and spread across the world. It is commonly used today by blind people everywhere. Without Louis's invention, blind people would have no efficient way to read or write. Louis Braille is an inspiration to everyone, especially people with disabilities. Even though he and Jennifer Keelan had difficult lives, Helen Keller had a much harder time than anyone could ever imagine. Helen Keller was only 19 months old when she had an unknown disease that caused her to become not only deaf, but also blind. This made it super rough for her to learn, more so than it was for Louis. The only way for her to communicate with other people was to spell out the word in her hand. But she didn't learn how to do this until she found a teacher who dedicated her life to her. When Helen was 5 years old, her parents hired a teacher called Anne Sullivan. On March 3rd, 1887, Anne flew to Helen's house in Alabama. Right when she got there, she tried to teach her the word doll, because that's what she had brought for her as a gift. She spelled the word out in her hand, but Helen just didn't understand. Every day, Anne would try to teach her new words, but she would throw tantrums often and get distracted easily. After trying to teach Helen in the house, Anne decided that it'd be best if they were in a place isolated from the rest of the family. So, Anne and Helen moved out into a cottage where Helen could strictly focus on learning. Then, one day, Anne came up with a new way to teach this blind and deaf 6-year-old she was living with. She decided to bring Helen outside. She took her to a water pump, and as she poured water over Helen's hands, she spelled the word water on her palm. This opened up Helen's mind, and she immediately started touching things, showing that she wanted to learn their names. She wanted to learn everything, and by the end of the day, Helen had learned over 30 words. Anne continued to help Helen, and soon she knew the alphabet. She then began to learn how to read and write. When she turned the age of 10, though, she decided that she wanted to learn how to speak. So, Anne decided to send her to Sarah Fuller, who worked at the Horace Mann School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing in Boston. Sarah taught her for 11 lessons. But even after all of the lessons, she still didn't really use her voice because it was hard to understand. She continued to live with Anne and learn new things. But as much as Helen enjoyed living with Anne, she had always dreamed of going to college. Soon, Helen went to Radcliffe and became the first blind and deaf person to earn a bachelor's degree. This was a huge achievement, and it's one of the many reasons why she's a big inspiration to everyone today. Helen had a very rough life, but she overcame it with the help of Anne Sullivan, who stayed by her side until she died. Helen became a teacher and a writer and wrote a book about herself called The Story of My Life. Alexander Graham Bell even said that she was one of the most interesting people of the 19th century, right alongside Napoleon. Today, she's an inspiration for people to work hard and break barriers, whether they have a disability or not. I can't say disability. Jennifer Keelan, Louis Braille, and Helen Keller were all kids who were disabled and influenced everyone with their bravery and courage. They have also helped to raise awareness for disabled people and how they should be treated the same. But even after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, there continued to be problems with how society treats disabled people. For instance, over the past number of years, Congress has been trying to weaken the Americans with Disabilities Act. They've also taken away some of their health care. So a lot of brave disabled Americans have been trying to show Congress that they are people too. Many campaigns have been happening to raise awareness for this, but they're not the only people who can help. Anyone can, and every small thing counts. You could go to a local march or just donate to a charity that supports the cause. We need to let America know that everyone should be treated the same. So, if you believe that we should all be treated equally, then try to make a difference. Because maybe you could break a barrier just like Jennifer Keelan, Louis Braille, and Helen Keller.